Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. Growing up, there was a lot of Christian dogma around me that I feel like I really absorbed. I don't think I'm the only person. I think I see it in my husband as well. This idea that as a Christian, as a believer, you're meant to sacrifice yourself for other people. Your job is to go out and do for others, and very little about doing for yourself. That would have been seen in that setup as selfish, a self-focus, not looking for other people's good. And so we've already talked through Matthew 22:37, which is the greatest of all commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And the second greatest commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. And I talked about there the fact that you have to love yourself first before you can love your neighbor. If you are loving your neighbor as yourself and you don't love yourself, you don't care for yourself, you don't honor what God has given you, then what you're doing for your neighbor is a lie. Or worse, if you're following that commandment, if you don't really love yourself very much, it's shallow, it's for a show, it's not deeply caring for somebody and doing what's really best for them. It's just doing something that's very shallow. And that's dangerous. If we're going to love our neighbor as ourselves, then we need to love ourselves first. And so here we are back in the Old Testament in Deuteronomy 16 through 18. And I have found another. So we jumped into the New Testament, into where we were getting ready for the new covenant, and talked about this foundational idea. And I have another support here, actually in Deuteronomy 19 through 21, where we are in chapter 20 talking about the laws of warfare. Really strange place to be looking for support of wanting to take care of yourself. But I found this really curious, that even in getting ready to march off to war, so you've got all of Israel, and their job now is to go into this promised land. God is giving it to them. But in exchange for this promised land that He has made ready for them, He is using them as a tool to carry out His mission, carry out His will. There's corruption of mankind going on, like DNA corruption happening. There's people that are following other gods. There are people who are following fallen angels. There is real evil, real corruption of the plan and the design that God had for humanity on earth. And He has put up with it for as long as it's going to be. Now He's going to march Israel in here, and He's going to use Israel as His implement to wipe that out. And in return, Israel is going to get this beautiful land, and they'll have houses already built that they walk into with all of the implements already there to survive. So all of the things that they've wandered around and missed out on, they're about to get given to them for their trials. But first, they must be obedient. And so you get the sense that this is their one mission: go in and kill. It's a really hard thing to wrap your mind around, but go in and kill and get rid of all of these people. And so you are a warrior people now, and that's all you're supposed to do. But that's not what we see here. We're definitely hearing God always has to go before you. You can only go and wipe out people that God has said they are marked for that. And even when they're marked for that, the laws of warfare that he is setting here are that you do not approach them with fear. You must speak to them first and offer them peace. And when they reject you, then you go in. But here with the people that are going to be the warriors, it is saying to gather all of the men of appropriate age. And as you're getting ready to go into war, have the priests ask, has anyone not had a chance to dedicate his house? Has anyone planted a vineyard and not harvested their wine yet? Is anyone engaged? There's actually a whole thing about what an engaged man owes his new wife before he runs off to war, that he owes her a year of happiness before he goes off and is risking his life. Is anybody afraid? There are all of these things that the priest is supposed to ask these warrior men that have been gathered. And if anybody can say, yeah, that's a situation with me. I just got engaged, or I'm not done with my year of engagement, or I just built a house. Those are legitimate reasons for those men to go home and not take place in the battle. And again, the battle seems like that's the whole deal. That's the trade-off. You can have this beautiful land, but you've got to fight these battles for God. So it's really, really important. But here God's saying there are legitimate reasons not to go take part in the battle and help out. Really curious. So what's God saying here? What God is really pointing to is that you are to take care of your personal commitments before getting involved with communal issues. As individuals, we are supposed to focus on our well-being before the collective. That is so against anything that I ever heard about how we are supposed to face the world as a believer. And I really believe that it's how we get into a lot of trouble on the world stage, because we have leaders that believe that they are believers, and they might not really be listening to God or really be reading His Word when they believe the dogma over what God is really saying. This past week, I focused on seeing God's imperative that we are focusing on our local community, that we're taking care of our local people. We do need to think about our community as a wider whole, but first we always need to make sure that right around us, right around in our neighborhood per se, in our small town as opposed to our large city, we need to be looking at local. And now here a little bit further on, it's very clear again that we are seeing evidence that we are meant to take care of ourselves first. And we see this in nature. Nothing is going to be able to, I guess we see this in fertility in plants. You're not going to see a plant add fruit to its body if it's stressed, if it hasn't taken care of its nutrient load, if it's under stress from heavy winds or drought or somebody injuring its roots or digging up part of it or hacking into part of it. If the plant is stressed, it doesn't add more. It doesn't go on to be fertile because it needs to take care of itself first. We must follow rules like that we see in nature. Nature isn't all about, it's not self-sacrificial. It's cooperative, but it's not self-sacrificial. Everything is designed to survive and to look at itself first so that it's really strong. And that's not a bad thing, because a plant in in a plant community that is weakened threatens all the plants around it because it will call in pests and disease that might weaken the other plants. You contribute to the other plants by being strong and fully nutrient dense and fully healthy in and of yourself. It's community health. True community health is first focused on yourself. We see that in the plant world, and we see it here again in the Bible. There is support for that being God's design, that we are taking care of, we are not sacrificing our personal values for external pressures. We have to think about this for our personal health and how we allow the stressors of our modern world to leak in. Every time, it's really easy. Every time I get wrapped up in a news story that I catch, I really don't watch the news at all on purpose, but I do have to maintain a presence on social media, and so I do sort of keep my eyes open for what's happening in the world. But when I start to get tangled up in that, I have to remember that first I have to be solid. I have to have my eyes fixed on what God wants me to do every day with my body and my gifting and my goal and my purpose that He has given me. I must be fully healthy and solid. And then I must focus on my local community. And if after those resources are spent, God tells me I need to go more global, then I'm here for it. But if we don't do the first two things, if we don't focus on ourselves and then our families and then our community, we are actually going against what is biblical truth and what is written all throughout creation. And it's really hard. I know that some people that are listening, and that's a really hard thing to think about. It's a hard dogma habit to break, but it really is important. It is, you cannot give to others. You cannot fulfill your purpose that you have here unless you first become fully healthy. You first look at your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical self and become solid. It is okay to pull over to the side, even when everybody else is going to battle, even when there is crisis, and you really want to help out, and you feel drawn to do that. If you aren't solid, you have to pull over to the side and focus on those things, or you are of no use to anybody. I pray that God is blessing you today, and that He is leaning on you just a little bit. So many of us are stuck in this cycle of sacrificing ourselves for other people because we think that's what God is asking of us, and it just isn't. I hope that God brings you back on another day and that we can study together and think more deeply about what God is telling us in our natural world and in His scripture. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.